splitting one house into multiple properties, and how to make money from that. How do you do it? Well, check out this video and we'll show you. Sanjay asks, and this is again a pre-question that's being put through. I have a retail shop with a 2-bedroom flat above on one title. They can be split. How much would it cost? So Tim, will come over to you. What are the advantages and disadvantages of doing so? So what I'm going to do here is a 3-prong attack here. I want to go over to Tim from the legal perspective, then over to Simon Hodgson from a mortgage perspective, and I'd like to go bring Ross in to talk about the kind of issues you might have from a building aspect as well. So start with you, Tim.
Okay. Basically, there are, I suppose, when I mentioned title splitting to one of my lawyers, he always rolls his eyes because he's very precise. And in fact, there are effectively 2 types of title splits. So imagine one, you own a field. Okay, you own a field and you want to divide it into 2. That's pretty straightforward. You simply do a line down the middle. You can create 2 freehold titles and you can own both of them. So that is a pure title split. However, what most people talk about title split actually isn't really title split at all. What you're doing is usually creating subleases. So the classic example would be, say, a 4-bedroom house that you wanted to turn into 2-bedroom flats. Well, actually, you're not creating 2 freehold units. You're actually creating 3 units. You're creating the freehold. That's the building overall, where the freeholder owns, is responsible for common parts, roof, garden, that kind of thing. And then there are 2 separate leases. And the only thing you do need to know there is you can't grant a lease to yourself. So in other words, if I own a building as Tim.Bishop, my house, for example, decide to put it into flats, I can't grant 2 leases to Tim.Bishop. And what I could do, I could grant it to my wife, or I could grant it to a company owned by me, but you can't grant it to someone else. So they're the real issues. Which one is it going to be? It can either be a pure split where you end up with 2 separate bits, but otherwise, usually, it's actually a lease you're creating. Now, if you're creating a lease, there are implications, obviously, in terms of insurance and mortgages, if you've got existing mortgages, but that's probably more for Simon. So yeah, there are issues there. There are forms to be filled in, etc. But yeah, that's how you do it. You are creating a lease that you can then sell on. And if you want to, you can hold the freehold and then sell one or more of the leases off.
Right, I think that's where I pick up then, Tim. Okay, so from a mortgage perspective, Simon, did Sanjay say what type of commercial element, who might be the tenant or the occupier in the ground floor part of the building?
I think we can just go on a broad brush. It's a restaurant, okay, or it's a shop or some sort.
Yeah.
Like.
And that's a kind of a loaded question for you guys watching out there, because the type of tenant you have in the ground floor might determine how we might approach this building. Okay, so if we start from the very beginning, in a commercial building, you have what's known as strength of covenant. That's who actually is in the building. So if you've got a downstairs coffee shop and Costa take it on, they take a 15-year lease with no break clauses, that's about the strongest type of covenant you could possibly get. And it will increase the value of your property. So there's a great way of adding value to property by finding stuff that needs to be turned around in relatively good parts of the high street and getting higher level tenants in. But it also kind of leads on to what you might need to do with the upstairs. Now, vanilla buy-to-let lenders are okay doing buy-to-lets on flats above commercial if they are generally deemed to be quite benign activities. So offices, that kind of thing are relatively easy to get. But if you've got foodstuffs or cooking preparation going on downstairs, that then kind of falls out of the vanilla buy-to-let lender and pushes it more towards the challenger bank, commercial banks. Okay, so depending on how and who it is, will it mean what we do. So potentially you could get a semi-commercial mortgage on that property. You do not need to split the leases. And a good broker will look at the types of tenants you've got in there, work out how it will value up, and whether that value will be enough for you to do it. The other thing you can do, which is, as Tim has kind of commented on, which is to create separate leases, and you then have a lease for the downstairs commercial unit, you have a lease for the upstairs, and we now then go for what's known as blended interest rates. So we take the downstairs, to a straight commercial lender and get a commercial mortgage on it because it's commercial property. And then we go for the upstairs, we take that to a standard buy-to-let lender and get a much better rate. So you pay a higher rate on the commercial element downstairs, a lower rate on upstairs, and we then work out what the value of each part is, and then we give a blended interest rate across the whole of the building. Again, you can get better values doing that as long as the flat is considered to be saleable and mortgageable to the owner-occupier market. And again, that is determined by who is downstairs. So it's quite a broad question, Simon. I think I'm going to kind of leave it there because I could possibly talk forever about this subject. And I know that you don't want me to talk to you about it, Simon. So I think I'll leave it there.
Why don't we bring you in, Ross?
Yeah, so from a build construction point of view, it's a difficult one to answer because I'm assuming, and I'll have to make some assumptions on this, that this is a shop below, 2 flats. They're all running on the same electricity supply. They've all got one common water supply. They've got a common gas supply. So if we assume
it's actually an office. It's offices. Yes, it's offices throughout at the moment.
Right.
It's because I know Max. I've spoken to
him. Right. Okay. Good. So I don't need to assume. So the things that spring to mind initially are utilities. You've got to split the utilities out. That can be an easy one. It can be a difficult one, depending on where you are in the country. By utilities, I mean gas, water, electric. The water is normally the hardest one. Drains are one thing that everybody forgets. Architects certainly never take them into account. You need to get drainage, and that drainage needs to be split and separated as you build. So you can't share drainage as such between flats. Access would be the next one I'd be concerned about. I've looked at lots of similar properties, and whilst you can get in as they are at the moment, access for the flats above and fire routes out, etc., are always a challenge. And the last one, which is a really practical one, but look at your neighbours. Who's around there? You know, flats don't sell well when there's a Chinese one side and an Indian the other, because the smells will eventually come into the flat. So